And my mom was in Italy. Getting play by play. My mother was in Italy.
Ah. She's telling you everything.
Big over people, so I'm getting all that. I was going to go more slideshows.
That's.
This is nice, I'm pretty sure I finished.
Oh dear.
Yeah, that's an issue.
I look forward to it. You'd be surprised at how she's we'll get to them have sticky notes and lots of highlighting.
Yeah.
Oh, we're about to do it.
Look, I'm there.
I saw the other. Oh no, I didn't need to open it.
If I'm there, everybody should be. I forgot my sticky notes tonight, so I'm just gonna follow along.
Okay.
Had it right on my desk because I had it plugged in to charge it and then left it right there.
All right, friends, it's 5:30, everybody. All right? Okay. Hello? No? Hi, hello. Welcome everybody to the Talbot County Board of Education work session. It is Monday, October 14th, 2024. As you can see, we are all here tonight, so therefore we have a quorum. And we can go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, does everybody have their agenda in front of them? Yes. In some way or another? I make a motion that we go ahead and approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Yeah, I see your raise and check. I make a motion that, oh, shoot. Sorry, I just said that. I make a motion that we approve our work session minutes from September 16th, 2024.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Sorry, I see myself on my agenda. Okay. We have a full agenda for you this evening. We're going to go ahead and start with the Maryland Blueprint for Education update with Kristen Summon.
Look at this.
Wow.
Just going to stand up here since I'm new to the new mic setup. So good evening, President Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Pipicani. Happy to be back to provide an update on our progress with Blueprint implementation and just highlight some focus areas for this year. So as a reminder, the Blueprint for Maryland's Future is rooted in 5 key focus areas. So they were determined by the Kerwin Commission, which looked at national and international school systems and really identified that there were 5 key components to a high-performing system. And then that kind of laid the foundation, those recommendations laid the foundation for the Blueprint legislation, which became the 5 policy areas, or that we refer to as the 5 pillars. So this is a 10-year investment in public education, and right now it's being monitored through a phased-in approach. So phase 1, we did complete that phase. That was 2022 to 2024. So during that time period, we were tasked with submitting an initial Blueprint implementation plan, which had 164 questions that we had to respond to really just describe what was our current state, and then how are we laying the foundation in order to do the work outlined in each pillar. So that was phase 1. We're now in phase 2. So recently, we were responsible for submitting a system-wide response, which was then incorporated in our full FY25 to 27 blueprint implementation plan. So this one was a little bit more forward-thinking, being more long-term strategic planning as opposed to setting the groundwork. So that's what we just submitted this May. And then phase 3 is really, we really don't know what that's going to look like, but that'll be our next phase of implementation for 27 through 2033.
And before we move on, I just want to point out the new kind of design that Tillman has created with our this year's slogan, Transforming and Performing Together, and on our website, that's a different website all about the group. When you click on the different puzzle pieces, it pops out and gives someone, information on the different components. Great design.
Okay, great. So just, again, talked about our submission this past May. So we're going to highlight a couple of pieces from that plan. But what I do want to just kind of take the time here is to thank everyone. This was internal and external contributors to our whole plan. So I'm going to share a little bit more about what some of that engagement looked like and some of those contributions. But I just want to shout out and thank everyone that was part of this work, because this is a huge effort, and we want to get as many voices as possible lifted and represented in our plan, because we truly have to do this together. So in May of this year, we submitted our FY25-27 blueprint implementation plan. We received feedback from the AIB and MSTP teams. They reviewed all plans and provided some feedback. So I wanted to highlight some of the areas that they gave as really some promising strategies. So they noted our clear alignment, our strategic priorities and our goals with the blueprint pillars. They also highlighted our full release mentoring program, and that's providing professional learning to teachers that are either new to the teaching profession or just new to Talbot County Public Schools in general. Also, our strong partnerships with community organizations related to providing those career and college experiences for our students. And then we also were highlighted for having strong communication strategies inclusive of educating, enhancing, and engaging surrounding blueprint implementation and what all of those pieces of legislation mean. So to date, we have received the green light, or I guess like the initial approval on this plan. On those,
Sorry.
So we did receive, I guess what I would consider a green light or initial approval of our plan, which is great. And then we just have to update some responses to one question 23, which was huge. It really dealt with multi-year budgeting and resource allocation. So a lot of districts are predicting some budget to be able to speak to that a little bit more, and we'll submit that response in early November. So I talked about this being truly transforming and performing together. So as I mentioned previously, this was truly a team effort. This is just some of the ways that we engaged both staff, community partners, school leaders, in some of the work. So previously, the first year, we actually divided kind of the work groups by pillars. So pillar 1 advisory, pillar 2 advisory. After a year, we looked back and said, there's a lot of work that needs to be done even within those pillars. And really the intention of the blueprint is for all of us to be cost-cutting. So we kind of just reevaluated, and it's from that additional work groups were kind of created in that. So for example, our multilingual work group, that kind of looks at all things multilingual learner. So that looks at how we identify our multilingual learners, starting in pre-K through grade 12. What are our professional learning opportunities for staff that are looking for multilingual learners? And then what are the needs of our families, and how can we incorporate that into asking or basically putting staffing where they need to be in order to meet those needs. So that kind of follows or kind of cross-cuts multiple pillars. That's just one example. So we, again, had teachers, instructional coaches, school leaders, district leaders, community members within all of these groups. And of course, we have advisory groups as well to kind of provide updates. And because our strategic priorities kind of align with blueprint goals, those conversations are happening very frequently. So we will continue engaging these groups throughout this phase as well. And then in true fashion of transforming and performing together, we've also leveraged our strategic partners through a strategic partner technical assistance program offered through the AIB. So we're excited to be working with Ms. Sharon Gaskins again on just overall blueprint implementation and support. So I worked closely with her last year, and she'll be able to continue that work this year. And then we've also partnered with Ms. Jessica Swanson, who's really going to help us with the resource allocation and continuing budget. So these are, again, this was a grant opportunity through the AIB. We're able to elicit some experts in the field, and then through that opportunity, we're able to use the grant money to contract some services.
And just to jump in, I've been in both meetings with both Sharon Gaskins and Jessica, and so what they bring is that outside lens, someone from the outside of our district, to get us thinking about when we thought about this, and really be questioning, questioning us and asking us various ways, but also they work with other districts, so they see and hear kind of those best practices and high leverage strategies that they can bring to the table and help us think about those things. So both of these, this AIB Accountability Implementation Board technical assistance was offered to all districts because in doing the blueprint, districts were kind of working together ourselves. And of course, we've heard all the challenges that come with the blueprint. So they said, here are some people to help you all out as well with accomplishing the things that you need to accomplish with it. So I find both of them very beneficial. We share, I know, Swanson with a few other districts. And so I've talked to the other superintendents and they agree it's been evaluated at
Mrs. Sewell, would you like us to hold our questions until the end, or do you want us to jump in kind of after going?
You can jump in.
Okay, and I have a question about Ms. Swanson. I'm excited that there's somebody to look at this from a higher level resource allocation sort of lens. How will we as the board hear about that work? How will that impact our work on our budget? Again, will we be told, we revise this from Ms. Swanson, or what would that, looks like?
Yeah, so I won't speak. Ms. Swanson in particular works very closely with students and her team, so I'm going to speak to, I'm kind of in some meetings, but they get really into some of those numbers that I don't necessarily have that level of expertise. So I'd like to also just kind of have the students talk to that a little bit.
And I was going to say, we can have Ms. Jones give a report on what the recommendations that Ms. Swanson gave, or some things we're going to use, so we can give reports when she gives her reports.
I would love to do that, especially, I think our presentation about how we divided funding, because the blueprint last year was really helpful. I think they're taking on their work, I think it helped a lot to understand it. So I think if you're getting best practice advice from somebody on this level, just knowing that's where they came from and why the budget is structured that way would be super helpful moving forward.
Okay, good.
Yeah, and I will say that although both of these individuals have many years of experience in public education, this whole idea of resource reallocation is like a true mindset shift. So it's, everyone's kind of working through, and even though she's bringing her level of experience and it's all something new. But I will say that the students and the team have been very kind of leading the way, so to speak, with making sure that things are already being allocated to the school level as best as possible. So just to update on kind of what's at the forefront and where our progress is right now. So we're continuing our collaboration with private pre-K providers, some of our partners are Judy Center partners. And actually, we were recently notified that we did apply for Judy Center grants, and Tillman Elementary was awarded that grant. So that was super exciting because we know the benefits that both the Easton and St. Michael's Judy Centers bring when it comes to helping students prepare their kindergarten, ensuring that parents and families have access to our learning resources, and they provide a lot of professional learning to our early childhood staff, but also the private folks in the community. So that is going to be super, super great for that community. We're going to continue going for those grants in the future. We're also working very closely with Dr. Morsi and her team around the continuing development and negotiations process. As you might recall, we did have a committee and review process and adoption of the new instructional materials for pre-K, for elementary and elementary and middle school and elementary English language arts curriculum next year. So this year, the teachers have access to some professional learning sessions for the year, and they're now implementing that as part of the instruction. Still continuing those partnerships with the community college and larger enrollment, and trying to develop some more structured programs to help students be able to see, how they can make their careers and courses that they're taking at the community college. Also increasing our registered apprenticeships in the community, so very thankful for all the partners that have helped provide these opportunities for our students. Career counseling, that's been huge. That came directly on the blueprints for officially year 2 of our career counseling program. So this year we were able to have some full-time counselors at St. Michael's High School, Easton Middle School, and Easton Middle School. So we have 3 this year. So on behalf of our students and staff, it's been really helpful to have those members in school every day, just for students to be able to check in. Sometimes they host lunch bunches and they bring business partners in and talk to students. So it's a really good opportunity to have career counselors in every single school to be able to be in addition to our current hardworking amazing counseling team. So I think that they've been very helpful and welcomed.
Can I ask, is every student getting the opportunity to work with a career counselor?
So it is the intention. Actually, this year we do have, in addition to those small group and one-on-ones, we actually have a career exploration course that we're doing in middle school grades. So that's offered at St. Michael's High School and Easton Middle School. Our career counselors are doing those teacher courses, as well as some middle school teachers. So that's just an additional opportunity to ensure that we're helping students start in the 6th grade.
Okay.
To ask a question, is that just sort of scheduling question, just ask who gets put in those classes and how students get selected for those, or is there more to students able to have to be in those classes, or is it just how their schedule happens to fall in that particular?
So I think it depends on the student and whatever the needs are for the years. I think that we've had some changes to schedules at Easton Middle School, for example. So it's being offered as related arts, and students are able to choose, their related arts for their students. It's just an additional course to choose from.
For taking suggestions. As a middle school parent, I haven't really heard a whole lot about this as an option for my children. And so maybe talking about it a little bit more, just for communication home, that is a new option, new class option that is available for your child as a related art should they want to take it. I think parents generally know the other related arts would be easy. Maybe more education to parents about what this is and what we're doing with your students. And that's part of the program.
Yeah, and I will say add that is a great suggestion. And our related arts courses, from my understanding, are cooler, so it might be that they're just not in right now as a possibility. moving away. In addition to that, we also have a school to career specialist who comes actually from the business sector. So he's bringing, that's just another perspective on top of our career counselors that being able to have that connection to the students who speak and be able to have those conversations with students is just really, really great for and that's at the school level. Easton Elementary is in year 3 as a community school, and then we also have Easton Middle 1 as a community school. And then we also will have our extra routine visits this year at our Whitemarsh Elementary School, Chiapas Elementary School, St. Elementary School, and we'll also have some parenting education and expert routines visiting both the St. High School and St. Louis High School. So we're just really excited for the opportunity to collaborate with some local and state agencies surrounding what's going great and what ways that we so.
Ms. Dillon, I have a question.
Yeah.
What kind of positive things have you seen come out of Easton Elementary School being a community school?
So I'll speak from my experience. I work in that building and I'm continuously amazed. And I'm speaking from the secondary level, and I have a lot of teaching experience at the high school level. And I'm just seeing, and hearing, kids with glasses, kids with that are just getting services that, without maybe some additional, that needs assessment that first year is super critical. And just identifying, what our students' needs, and I know some staff has too, which is great. So just being able to see all the people, all of what they do at once, and then make it look flawless. And I do have to say that. I'm literally not just saying that either. They go over there and they're singing in bars, and everyone's like, this is what we do every day. So I think it's just amazing that we can have so many people in-house, but also some community organizations in here as well, and things are just seamless. It's incredible. So I think that's just so exciting that kids have opportunities.
Excellent. Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I have a little bit of that? I saw something at First High School that I thought was just really, really cool. We were talking to some staff about how things were very unique at Second High School. Anyway, a teacher, I was engaged with a teacher, we were all sitting around saying, things were great. Whenever a teacher brought a girl up and said, the person was speaking to, so showed up with a beautiful pair of new shoes today, but they do not fit her. And she had the heels went to run it, 3 sizes, just not easily. And then the teacher was speaking to just seamlessly, I was like, oh, that's great, that's what they're getting taken care of. They walked up hand in hand, they walked right to where the shoe closet was and got her all set up. And it all happened like after the issue, there wasn't paperwork, there wasn't like, we have to stop, we have to make this happen. It was just like, yeah, this is a natural part of our day, we're just gonna make this happen, this can leave out. And then I haven't gotten a chance to see anything like that happen, in front of me. It was just like, boom, take care of him, how I thought it was really cool to see.
And that was just kind of a brief overview. So I know I try to provide as much information in a little bit of time, but I do invite you and the public, members of the public, to view our updated footprint website. As I mentioned, Dr. Kai, we have a new logo that kind of ties our footprint and talking about the schools, like transforming and performing all together. And again, that's just to symbolize that all these pillars are connected, and it truly takes a team that's in order to transform the blueprint. So we have our own blueprint resources, as well as resources created from MSTE and so another thing that we have too is that if anyone has questions or wants to provide feedback on our blueprint implementation, there's a place to do that.
Kristen, are you aware, I'm sure you're aware, but I'm just kind of curious, as you know, after the blueprint was enacted, the state, Maryland State Department of Education, convened a special education work group. And I'm just wondering if you've heard anything from the special education work group yet, and if so, what would that look like?
Yes, it's my understanding that that work group is going to present final recommendations for the next year.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
and just to, some things that kind of came out of some other state work groups, that's going to probably start some of our these work groups that we put together.
Thank you.
As a part of this, I got a question way back to your initial slides. I did ask for this before for a related topic. You listed a bunch of committees and workers committee are fantastic. I think I want to know who is a part of this committee for all of the committees that you have in-house. And saying maybe if you could list members out, you can have information to see that addresses because you know we have lots of questions from lots of constituents and parents interested or concerned people and you know who to go to. It can maybe get an answer to your question much easier rather than just asking often to me. I'm not a person for 97% of things in the district. But even helping for me to connect who you should talk to for all things. I think that's a question. But if you could get out just a list would be great, being on one of those resource tabs.
I don't think that's a problem. What I will say is that being a part of some of these meetings, we hop in, we get conversations start going, and we say, okay, for the next meeting, we need to invite so and so, so and so, so and so. So it's, you know, it's evolving, and so just know that. But that's
Or even just a committee chair or a chair point person to talk about this specific thing.
And that's all I have for tonight. So thank you for your time, and if you have any other questions.
I think the big elephant in the room always when we're talking about workers is funding. Can you share with us a brief overview of what the conversation about funding has been from the state? I know that there have been lots of talks about are we going to fund this, can we fund this, is this possible? I know there's questions about the gambling money. Where does that come into all of this? And have there been early discussions about that, or where are we in that?
Yeah, so some of that is a little bit out of my purview, but what I will say is that when asked this question or something similar, that to communicate that this is truly a transformational mindset shift with some of the funding, the blueprint is really intended to disrupt the way that we do business or that we have traditionally done business. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of just adjust that mindset. So we're operating as usual, while also trying to implement some new ways of tying things to buckets and pillars and things of that nature. So I think it's, I don't really know what's going to come out of this legislative session, but I am hearing that what can we prioritize is what's doable right now, what's currently operating. So,
And that's the message I think across the state. Dr. Wright has heard about and clear the funding challenge. So she's doing what she can to work on the foundation formula. What you're going to find as we enter our budget timeline is in a great session, I got a slide deck from the CFO on budget reallocation and how it ties with the blueprint. So me and Ms. Jones have already been talking. We'll see the timeline on Wednesday for our budget, and so we're constantly trying to make the slides and the information easy for everybody to understand. So that's my plans for the session that they CFO saying that we'll be talking about that. And then talk funds as we enter budget planning.
When I talk about blueprint, I generally say that, well, the objectives, I kind of watch everything come together as that, co-being some current vision and, we're actually sort of in the middle of where we are now. And I say, the objectives have stayed the same, the 5 pillars have sort of stayed the same, but how we get there has changed a little bit. The approach has changed a little bit. I think that it's improving, growing, evolving document based on feedback from both education agencies and everybody involved. Is that my assessment of what we're doing and how it's going? Do you think that there is enough flexibility in here? Or do you think it's super rigid and, we have to carry this as that?
I think what I appreciate as this being year 3 for me is that, as Dr. mentioned, people are starting to actually listen when we say, hey, this doesn't make sense, or hey, this guidance, you're giving it to us way after we're connected to your budget. So, what I'll say is, there's a movement that people are listening, that make these decisions. So, I think we're being heard to know areas. So, how that is impacted going forward, I'm really sure, but being heard of these things, nice. So, important to move the work forward. So.
Has there been any movement in the no representation from the Eastern Shore in that conversation? Has anybody responded?
So, Mr. Carroll, who we have a small group of superintendents who are at the table now, Dr. Ray, the SDE, and so that hasn't happened before. So I would say within this last year, starting last year, small group of superintendents, we talk to all the superintendents, we talk about all the challenges we're having, and then they go and present to, which is why I think if someone's saying it, they're listening. And so they're hearing it, and they're like, okay, let's think about that, or let's push that out, or we really think it's really unfeasible for districts right now, so we do that. So that's my group of district superintendents, we would have said that it's not really
My feeling too, and I think I am probably maybe the state's biggest Dr. Ray fan, is that we had a major change in the state superintendent, who very wide sort of leading stuff, and now he is gone and somebody new. And I am just so impressed with everything that I hear out of her and the direction she's taking with her leadership and the way that she's approaching the blueprint, that I just am so positive about like where we're going with this. I think that she personally hasn't changed anything, just her approach. It's completely different in the way she's engaging, it seems, with superintendents and local districts is just completely different. And I the fact that I'm being heard now, I'm not surprised by that. So just very hopeful. As in a lot of places where I was like, we're really stuck, and it just super pronounced stuck anymore.
I just want to say one thing I noticed. We always hear such bad things. I saw something really good on the fire department sign today. Career planning. And 2 of our seniors from last year are now EMTs, nationally certified. So, yeah.
Anybody else have questions for Mrs. Stewart? On behalf of the board, thank you very, very much for the work you're doing. This is very intense and a little bit dry. And you are on top of it all the time. So thank you for being here tonight. Thank you right there when you are needed.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Good evening, Ms. Jackson and members of the board. I want to try to liven things up a little bit. That is perhaps not quite as dry as a blueprint, but equally important when we think about children, our staff, and our primary goal of educating our students. So I'm here this evening representing a large group of individuals who have been part of this work and are actually doing the work around this. I just happen to be the spokesperson this evening, and that does include the members of this board who have elevated the issue of cell phone use in our schools. We've recently looked at our policy, but we know that cell phones continue to be an issue for our youth and haven't had positive experience in our schools. So, begin this evening with just reminding our viewers that we do have a policy which governs cell phone use. It was updated most recently in 2023. And this includes several pages of ARs, but just to underline that, students in pre-K through grades 8 are permitted to have cell phones, but they should be turned off, stored, and not visible during the school day. There is a little bit more flexibility for our students in grades 9 through 12. They are permitted to use them during class changes or at lunchtime, but they too should have their phones off during instructional time. Recently, there's been a plethora of information coming out about the impacts of cell phones, social media, and I just tried to pull some key points that is coming out in the research. One that really spoke to me was the first one, which indicates that on average, students spend 43 minutes of their instructional day on their cell phones. That equates in some districts to a period of their school day in which they are not engaged with learning. There's also been teachers indicating that the cell phones are a distraction in the classroom. And I'll show you some statistics from our teachers a little bit later. More worrisome are just some of the impacts of social media and cell phone use, which are, while not directly attributed in research, are definitely considered to be impacts on students' mental health, their social and emotional well-being, but also just their overall engagement with others, including their teachers and their peers. When the board took a look at updating the cell phone policy in 2023, you had asked Ms. Spurrier to get some information to put out a survey. And if you'll recall, she surveyed students, parents, staff, and then the board yourself about your cell phone interest and some of the concerns that might be coming up. On this slide, you'll see just again, two of the questions that were asked of parents. Should there be restrictions on student cell phone use during the day? And the blue indicated yes, and that was 94% of the parents who responded said there should be restrictions. Another question asked, should students be permitted to have their cell phones and use them during the instructional time? And 90% of parents said no, that was the green. When I compared this to staff feedback to the same questions, on the first one, should there be restrictions, our staff said 96% yes, there should be restrictions. And to the second question, should students be permitted to have their phones out and use them during the instructional time, 95% of our staff said no. So based on this information, TCPS staff began investigating what were some options for cell phones in our schools. Well, we have a policy that says students are not to have them visible. We all know, as we are in our daily lives, but also within our schools, cell phones have become an appendage for almost everyone, including our students. And it should not be a battle in the classroom that our teachers have to engage in to monitor cell phone use, because that takes away their time and their expertise in instructing our students in trying to monitor cell phone usage. Our students, while most of them are very compliant and respectful of our rules, cell phones seem to be one of the things that is the most problematic to enforce in our schools. So this group of individuals, including Ms. Spurrier in Student Services, some of our administrators, started to take a look at what is being done nationally regarding around cell phone use. This is a timely discussion. We were just speaking about Dr. Wright and her work with the State Department of Education. She recently surveyed all districts in the state of Maryland to survey what are policies around cell phone use, what restrictions are in place, and how are schools trying to tackle this issue that is interfering with instruction. So she and her staff recently at the last board meeting presented some findings around that and are looking at whether or not they need to do something more statewide to help curb this issue. So based on the research, we are looking to pilot the use of this yonder cell phone pouch. You may have heard of this recently, because it has also been put in place in Caroline County at the start of this school year. And Dorchester County is also using this same product. Recently at NAEP, you may have heard Dr. Pepikai, Dr. Simmons, and Dr. Thompson presenting on this topic, so you're probably already familiar with this. But did want to give you kind of a high-level overview of kind of the background to how we got here, and then also what this will look like in practice as we begin moving forward in Talbot County. And you'll see a sample that is coming around the campus. We know that cell phones are important for students to have coming to and from school, after school, we recognize that. The cell phone pouches would be assigned individually to students. They would each have their own pouch that would be inventory. They would carry this with them at all times, just like they do their iPads from school. When they enter the building, they would be expected to turn off their cell phones, place it in the pouch, and you will see on the sample that's going around, they click the case to lock it. The case then remains locked while they are in school, but students are able to maintain the cell phone in their possession. To try to collect all those cell phones would be a very difficult task. But we also know that it's important for students to maintain their cell phones. That is theirs when their parents are providing it to them. So that cell phone would be able to be in the student's possession all day long. At the end of the day, students would be able to release the cell phone from the pouch by touching it on the magnet that is going around and pushing the button to open it. Their cell phone would be released. They take the case home with them, and we repeat the process when they come in the next day. There's been significant effort to think about all of the what ifs. How do we handle this? What do we do? So Ms. Murdoch and her staff have been working very closely with representatives from the Yonder Company who have experience in all 50 states and internationally using this product. So they've been able to share with us some best practices, which include how many magnets you would need per student in the building to be able to effectively and efficiently get students out at the end of the day. They've also talked with us about how there would be additional magnets available to administrators and to other staff in the building should there be a reason where phones had to be unlocked and students weren't able to access the magnets at the exits. We've even had Mr. Schaefer walk the schools with the school staff and in conjunction with Yonder representatives to determine where the magnets would best be affixed in the building. And we discovered at Easton Middle that there really isn't a great place in the front lobby for anyone who might be exiting out those doors. So they have come up with the idea. They purchased 2 carts and they affix the magnets to the carts. So those can be pushed out into the hall at the end of the day. Students can click out and head out of the building with their phones, then open and in their possession. We know that there may be concern among parents about safety issues during the school day. That's one of the things that usually rises to the top of concerns. What if there's an emergency in the school? We've had conversations and heard from national experts that during a real school emergency, it is actually a greater safety risk for 800 students to be pulling out their phones and making phone calls instead of listening to the directions that will help keep them safe. So while I recognize that that will be an issue that some will express, we do know that for safety of students, having their cell phones away during an emergency is most likely going to be a greater benefit to them. We've also had questions raised about what about students who use their phones for different medical issues? And there are actually, just like everything else we do when we implement something, if there are students who have specific needs, we work with that student, their family, to provide them what they need so that they are safe within our schools. So there's actually a different type of pouch that can be used for students who may need to have more immediate access to their phone during the school day to monitor a health factor that might be in place for them. So that has been thought of as well. We actually had the research done. We were ready to move forward at the beginning of the school year. But one of the things we realized was that it's really important for us to communicate this so people understand the why. And when I say people, I mean that very broadly. Teachers, students, family, community. Why we would try to pilot something like this, but also that we have opportunities for people to ask the questions they have prior to going to full implementation. So this year we would be piloting this at Easton Middle School. Ms. Murdoch has already met with her staff at the start of the school year to talk about this opportunity. They had several other opportunities to talk about it as a staff and to meet with her individually regarding that. Most recently last week during their staff meeting. So her staff has been able to ask questions, and the response from teachers has been positive because they see the potential benefit for this. There is a comprehensive plan for volunteering through our community, which includes communication to families that will go out on October 17th. Ms. Murdoch and her staff have been working with student services. I believe Ms. Gardner has been involved in the conversations, as well as with Yonder, to develop materials to go out to families regarding the initiative. Ms. Murdoch and her staff will be doing presentations to their student body on October 18th, again, to explain the why, the process, answer questions that may come up. And then there's also going to be a presentation to the Family Teacher Organization on October 28th at the school. Others want to learn more about it and see the device firsthand and at it. And then our plan would be to begin implementing this starting on December 2nd. That is when we come back from the Thanksgiving break. It gives us a period of time between Thanksgiving and the winter holiday to put this in place. And then when students come back for after the new year to reinforce the expectations around it. So there's been a very thoughtful plan about digging into the logistics of using this, but also how do we begin to share the why, the what, the how, so that we can bring our students and our community on board. So I'm happy to answer any questions you might have or to invite Dr. Epicani to present it recently.
Yeah, so I know for most of you here, you heard that this is your second go right now hearing this. Myself and Dr. Simpkins and Dr. Johnson presented a discussion made on this. And it was a moment, and we in this action information have many institutes in the state. And they all share their pains of going through something, what they were doing. It was just a good discussion about it. And I think I have a couple of comments being said that we have to enforce the lack of that's a period of time and come back. So, I kept up in session, the team, Murdoch, and the school staff, thinking of everything and doing this, just because you can find something like this. Cell phone, which is a national program. It takes a lot of us to think the team together to
What is the cost of rolling this out to Easton Middle School, and where is this coming out of our budget?
I don't think that it is my standard dollars of each. Every time it's ever any students, I think I had a picture of my but it came through my funds.
Oh, okay. That's good.
And to add into what Dr. McCurry said, yes, I was at that session, yes, it was standing only. I would assume that what most people left with was the one word that I left with too. A superintendent stood up and said, yes, this is my old district, and it was magical. And that was the word that I left with, magical. And I don't think the superintendent of any school district uses that word.
Do we have any idea of how long it will take in the morning and the afternoon for students to put their cell phones in the pouches and then for them to take them out and leave them there?
So I will say that when we first implement this, I'm sure it's gonna take much longer than I would like it to. But again, that's like everything else that we first put in place. This first day of school, getting our buses in, getting students on and off the buses. But again, I think we can slow it out, going through the what and the why, and just being patient as we start putting this in place. My understanding is once the initial novelty has worn off, it's a pretty simple touch, click, touch, click, touch, click. So just as they're walking out the door, they're able to do that. But an exact time, I don't have that estimate. But I expect after the first few days, we'll be rolling out another system.
And that was my curiosity too, so I was telling all the students, and it takes a while to sit down, it's just like, you know, they roll the cards, kids just looking at it. So I think at first it's gonna take some time, but it's not like, it's not like it's not.
I would imagine it will take much longer to get them in than it will be to get them
So I was also at that NAEP session last week, and I know that Caroline has rolled this out already, and they were very happy with how it's going, but he did mention, Dr. Simmons mentioned that their biggest pushback was emergencies, and he mentioned that they put some good scissors in each classroom because that was more cost effective than putting the magnets in each classroom. Is that something that we're considering? And then part two to that is, are we going to revise our cell phone policy again?
So question one I can respond to. Again, Yonder is in all 50 states, working with many school systems. So pieces like that, they've been able to share with us as best practices.
Okay.
So yes, we have some contingencies for emergencies, including the additional magnets, but some other ways to get things out more quickly. In terms of the cell phone policy, I would imagine as a pilot, we would want to see this in place for a period of time, and then also collect data, because we are data-driven in Talbot County Public Schools, to determine whether or not it is having the intended impact. So are we seeing whatever measures we come up with to determine that? It could be discipline referrals, it could be academics, it could be anecdotal information from our teachers in the classroom. But we would want to see data.
Thank you.
I was gonna ask, do we already have some level of like baseline data around student engagement that we can use as kind of a baseline against any future data metrics that we would do?
So in terms of student engagement, I'm not quite sure like an exact measure, but I do know like in our climate survey, there are questions that hit on engagement, feeling welcome and respected in the classroom. So we could be looking at those types of questions as one of the measures.
Okay, thank you.
It's kind of an easy question, but I'm curious what the plan is for Christmases or late arrivals for students who won't be not here working their purchase at the same time as everybody else. And as such, I would assume that there are like a set of ARs or modules being implemented, and I'm going to see those knowing that this will be part of the policy discussion later on, because I have a lot of thoughts on renderings and all those specifics. What if a student won't do it, or what if, students are still on, is making noise throughout the day, and curious what the overall plan is. I know that that's could be under purview, but I'm more curious than anything else.
So again, when we do pilot something, those are all the lessons learned that then could be part of a policy revision and an AR revision. Again, we feel very comfortable with the fact that there are so many districts that are using this that we can learn from them. So for example, if a student comes in late to school, we know that they sign in and out of the main office. So there's our protocol there for the blocking of the phone. If a parent comes to pick up their child early, there will be a way for them to open it up when they leave. In terms of whether students will or will not put it in a pouch, all of those things, again, we have very clear progressive discipline policies. We know when we first implement something, there's a lot of teaching and reteaching that goes into helping students understand what the expectation is. So those are all things the school will be working on. But those are conversations that have already been had among the group in terms of how to move forward, and will roll out in communications that are coming forward.
When do you plan on rolling out to the other schools?
Not quite sure about that. Grant funding and funding, but I do think we will need to see at least this year what our data is telling us about the impact.
I would imagine that this group will have more questions as this rolls out. So I think everybody is satisfied with this evening. We thank you for the presentation, but know that we probably will want to check back after this has been rolled out, maybe sometime in January.
And I do think at that time, spokesperson here, but I think it would be really beneficial to have the East Indiana team here to also talk about some specifics, some of the things that they're seeing on a day-to-day basis. So I've already been talking with Chris Snyder about that. So, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Ranford. Next up, we have, this is fun, completed conference summaries, starting with Dr. Kukai, and I think you can Chris over there.
Yep, so I wanted this to be part of the, because oftentimes at May, we go to sessions and we don't have a session. So I thought this would be a good opportunity to share with us. From two different sessions that I attended. I think we all heard the main session we were talking about interest in the entire everyone comes in. You can see everything on everybody has name that she shared the slide that I took a picture of. It was a slide where she talked about the Center for Public Education and online characteristics of effectiveness. And she talked about the work that they do in school districts. And I was really great. Go through the meeting. She talked about these are activities to achieve quality instruction. To shelter using distance and learners, consistently engaging children. Great relationships with staff and community, by analyzing data to drive results, safety lines, resources to meet district goals, segregating activities, protecting district collaboration, and I was looking at the thing, I was like, those are those things I feel, talk about the strengths and here, words and actions of the I thought, I think we're in a good place, and we're really was really inspired by what I saw. So I'm pretty sure that that's that thing. The second session I'm going to is on collective carbon. And I took a picture of a slide that I had from board members and how we were on a team. And that's focusing on what board members can do in getting to yes, which is what I think you're talking about in that session. So it's a front back picture here. So I went to that session, another session was all the attorneys in that represented the districts and superintendents. So we had a session on that. And they talk about this, people coming up with just making sure you go back, people get up and talk. And they also talk about the arrests of students and reportable offenses. So they made it clear on what the law said, what districts can't get in on actually so they were just making scenarios that we're talking about as far as dealing with horrible events in districts, public comments, and then the different cases that were like cases that were going on in the district. So I thought that was a good session. The last session we went into, but I got the slide right. Allocation and how so the slides take some things between the press. So, but all in all, I think it was a good conference. It's always nice to hear and sit in and talk about the districts and see what they're doing and take some ideas. Right back.
I've been at the conference as well. I really enjoy getting to talk to other board members from across the state, getting to meet them, getting to meet the other superintendents. It's a really collaborative conference, and I find it really useful and interesting. The first session I attended was in regards to book reviews. What can and cannot constitute a book review, why it should and shouldn't happen, different rules around why a book can be reviewed or not reviewed more than once. It was presented by the Frederick County attorney and also the Herbert County attorney, and it was very interesting. Another session I went to was supposed to be, it was titled Communication Around the Blueprint. However, it ended up becoming, because the person leading the conference, who was really good, and I think he was Baltimore County? I think he was Baltimore County, but regardless, yeah, PG County, okay. But regardless, he opened the session around special education, and then because it was a very interactive session, that honestly became the lead topic of the session, and he brought up some really interesting things that they've done in their county, such as non-IEP meetings to see what went good and what went bad in different meetings, and it was a very fascinating session. And then I also attended the self-guided session, which talked about these couches and implementation, as already heard in the customer, and that was also a really good session that had a lot of people from the state, and they talked about how they tried other things like hoteling and how that wasn't really effective, and it just made me really confident in our decisions moving forward with this challenge.
I also attended the conference. This is my 6th year as a board member, and I can say this was the best meeting I've been to, hands down. When I go to events and conferences like this, I'm looking for tangible ideas that we can bring back. While I appreciate the larger, community networking stuff, that doesn't have as much of an impact on me as what can we do, what can I do as a board member, which is my role as narrow, but what can impact other successful board members have done in their counties. And so I've always, that's my area, that's what I'm listening for. I actually went to the cell phone session, I thought it was great, very proud of Dr. B, said they were representing us very well. I thought that was awesome. They said the one line was the word magical, resounding. I went to a session with our Henry, it was fantastic. It was a sort of roundtable discussion. I like networking and discussion when it is led purpose-driven, and that was a very good, purposeful discussion. I took notes on my phone, do as I say, not as I do, watch I too went to the book review session, and I left wondering if we could please see our policy around that. Maybe when was the last time it was looked at, have our policy committee review it. There is something called the Freedom to Read Act. I want to just make sure that they're in compliance. I'm sure we are, but I would like to see it firsthand. These are some singular notes that I pulled out. St. Mary's County has a really interesting tracking system for parenting or community feedback or complaints or questions, where it goes for any person in the team that touches it. It's just tracked, so you know who has looked at it, who has spoken to this person, what actions have been taken, which I think is really helpful. Could be questions board members that we have lots of questions that are way outside of our or understanding to know where that community question has gone. I think that it could be difficult to set up as something that could have great impact, especially in discussions about transparency and communications with our community. The special ed session, it was supposed to be a special ed session, it really was. It was focused on providing student resources that were and student resources for a specific population of students and how to get that information across to those parents. He was very moving, an excellent speaker. I would suggest we look into have him come present to our staff. He suggested a special ed summit similar to our FI summit, and idea, bringing in different speakers, different training, having a whole day around APA special ed practice. I would love to see that happening here at the resources. I think we need to share this kind of information, but I would love to connect with them at the district. Hertford County has shared a recently a data dashboard. They're very proud of their data dashboard. It is live, updated frequently. It is available to the communities right on their website. I know that we have on tracking our data, and we have a person on staff who is fully committed to tracking our data. It would be really cool, and in the era of transparency, we have that available to everybody. Not all of our data is fantastic. I'm just proud of the strides that we have made, and be able to share that publicly, I think would just show more of us standing behind the work that we have done and where we're going. Being able to see trends is also really good, I think, for everybody. There was a really good student panel at the end, and I heard a lot of really interesting things. That was one of my favorite sessions. Some of the things that came to mind as I was watching these very eloquent and vicious with some kids speaking. Very eloquent our student board members event. They make things come. I think they will get a lot out of it. It starts about having an alternate student board member. So if there are student board members on the bill, there's an alternate who could sit in. I like that idea too. For students is always great in my opinion. One of the students talked about the importance in investing in what students actually want to do. Totally counterintuitive to our cell phone policy, so I'm just going to say we're going to actually give that cell phone they want to, but it also helps them what it really is being a student, nothing about them without them. So trying to really bring that mindset on student satisfactions and what they are to things. The only thing that I learned from them is my access to places and things that they want to do, particularly in the form of transportation. And so the idea of after-school busing, which we talked about years ago, and I fell by the wayside during COVID. I would like to explore that idea again. Sorry, I didn't bring this up right before budget season, but I think it's everyone's going to be, it's going to be to get students to the places where they need to be, and by need to be, I mean places that make them feel safe and secure in our community. I think for after-school club sports engagement, that's really important. So those are my big topics. And I really enjoyed my time with our board members and our superintendent. They have a fantastic team, as I pointed out. I'm glad that we're taking the time, and what I all this super strong here, and we'll continue to do.
So I attended the conference as well. This was my first conference, so it was really, really cool to be in that environment, and I think you ushered me in My favorite session was, of course, it's about data. So improving student outcomes for college and career readiness through the blueprint. And I figured because that's where we are, the blueprint is where we are, what are we doing? And so the session was all about multiple means of kind of engaging students and what that path looks like, as well as best practices around identifying students who might be interested in dual enrollment at an earlier access point, interested in, careers in different forms and fashions throughout the community. So I felt like it offered that multiple means of engagement for students, along with kind of looking at how do we kind of leverage that to improve our academic outcomes with students. So I was very much into all of the data. I won't even bore you with all the numbers that are down. But that was definitely one of my favorites. They actually offered the data for each of the counties. So I actually got all the data for all of the Eastern Shore counties, so I can start to kind of look at that. So I will share that with everyone. And of course, I did enjoy my session. I was able to facilitate a discussion on the Educational Equity Committee for me. So we did the All for Students Support kind of discussion. And I was also able to include, I would say, examples and discussion points that kind of speak to us. Sometimes the examples in those types of sessions go over our heads. There are things that we don't always experience. So I think having people from the shore participate in this way, we were able to actually have like some meaningful discussion on things that we experience. Things around attendance, things around access to technology, things around how to engage multilingual learners and families. So I thought it was a really good opportunity to have that conversation. But we also, again, delved more into our educational equity policy and facilitators workbook, et cetera. And so I do want to share with the committee, because we have a policy committee, I do want to share with the board as well, kind of some touch points and things we should be thinking about when it comes to educational equities as we're developing our policies and procedures throughout the district. So I'll share that information with everyone on this. But I had a really good time at the conference, and let's go again.
So I also had the amazing opportunity of attending my first MAVE conference, and one of the sessions that I went to was called Show Up and Show Out, Moving the Mark on Attendance. And after COVID, Dr. Bright is really making a strong initiative for recovering our attendance after COVID. And we took a look at the community schools and how our community schools helping to support attendance. And through some of our partnerships with the health department, other agencies such as Housing and Social Services, if we could really take care of the student and the family needs through our community schools, looking for that to help increase our student attendance so students aren't missing as much. And then they kind of also dove into some data looking at the number of excused absences versus unexcused, and looking at about 60% are unexcused, 40% excused. Now that's a statewide data point, but kind of diving deep into why the excused and taking a look at our policy and just kind of like determining in some of their districts, they also like, well, we won't get into the weeds of it, but what they excuse for attendance was very eye-opening and, kind of thoughtful. Can we take a look at our data? Can we look at, why kids are missing? Is it a vacation? Is it going on a college trip? And looking at our reasons for it, how we have coded it, whether it's excused or unexcused. Then I also was able to attend one on college and career readiness. And I think the big thing there is when we're determining whether our students are college and career ready in 10th grade, it doesn't start in 10th grade. That's where our data point is that we're looking at. So making sure that we continue to keep a focus on what happens in pre-K and throughout, and really taking a deep dive into looking at our 3rd grade MCAT data, our 4th grade MCAT, and so on and so forth, and really taking a look at that and saying, what are we doing? How are we addressing the students' need to ensure that they are college and career ready by the 10th grade? So they were very good, and Mrs. Strawberry won't be in that session. It was very, very good.
I also attended the conference, obviously. Being the first conference with only 2 months of sitting here on the board, I believe it's only been 2 months, it was packed full of information. I also took notes on my phone. A couple of the meetings, the breakout sessions that I attended, a lot of you have attended as well, so I won't reiterate some of those things, but the one regarding the right to read, I did spend a lot of tapping on Emily just to make sure that we had policies and procedures in place, especially with the Maryland Act that was just passed by the governor in April. Just to make sure that, one, we have a process for book reviews whenever there's a challenge. Two, we're not violating people's freedom to upbring their children, that we're not violating the right of expression, and also not violating anyone's religious preference. So I look forward to seeing that policy and see what we need to do to put things into place. Secondly, attending the meeting, the breakout session with Ms. Henry, it was impactful for me because it opened up my eyes to a lot of things. I did enjoy the fact when it comes to educational equity. I heard a lot of educational equity in terms of the elementary school and the community. That's very important to allow our students to be able to have the resources and accessibility for good education. So thank you for everything that you're doing as far as that is concerned. Secondly, I attended the Student Outcomes for Career and College Readiness. And along some of the other things that Candace and Anna has talked about, they also talked about how to look at your data and how to story tell it. You know, what is your data telling you? What is it not telling you? And if it's not telling you something, why? And what can you put into place? What are the barriers? So that's also important when we're looking at data, and also when you begin to collect data in the future, you know what else you could look for to make it beneficial, especially for us as a board, to make sure that we're implementing the right things for our students and for our instructors. And I don't believe anyone else attended the session regarding mental health services. I believe I was the only one. And this was presented by Charles County Public Schools. And one of their main focuses, although they're focusing on, of course, learning and student engagement as far as learning and curriculum development, they're looking at what's impacting the students as far as mental health, that they could bridge the gap. And what they have developed is a telehealth service where they have telehealth providers who provide mental health services for their children. They also have community partners and local and state agencies who come in to also help to do, whether it's group instruction, whether it's individual one-on-one instruction. They've also implemented screenings to be able to develop target words to know if there's any impact as far as self-harm, whether self-harm with themselves or with others as well. So it was something to look at, and teen mental health first aid. I'm not sure if we have that here, but that probably is something that we may want to look at in the future. And then there, of course, there was a panel review with other counties as well. But very impactful for me. Like I said, it opened up my eyes to a lot of things that I've never even considered. And also, as we're going through board elections, a lot of things came up, even with our keynote speaker, is remembering why you're here. And that's something that we all need to keep in mind.
Okay. Anybody else? Any questions about anything? Anybody else? Any questions for Dr. B about what she saw and heard? No? Okay, well, that is all of our topics for this evening. So we'll go ahead and adjourn for tonight, and see you all tomorrow for a meeting with County Council, and then back here on Wednesday for our regular monthly meeting. Thank you.